I stayed at my job, we definitely would have had that guaranteed secured income to reach financial independence in the timeline that I had set. But I realized I didn't want to sacrifice like my life in the moment, with 3 kids at that point, with the business on the side, with the commute. It just wasn't worth it. I realized that I could actually enjoy my life, even if it took me longer to reach financial independence, because maybe Journey to Launch didn't make as much money or any money at first. That was fine with me because I was actually having the benefits of financial independence. I controlled my own schedule. We had flexibility. I literally, even to this day, like live a very blessed lifestyle where I feel free.
Hi, friends, and welcome to the Next Best Thing podcast. I'm your host, Andrea Cline-Thomas. Now, I'm here to help you create strategies to navigate all of your career and life transitions. And as we like to say around here, a pivot and a plan B are not required. Now, before we go ahead and dive into this episode, please hit subscribe so you don't miss any future conversations. Now, if you're on YouTube, we make it pretty easy. Just hit that red triangle at the bottom right-hand corner of your screen so you, again, never miss an episode. Also, do you know that we have a newsletter out right now? It's called Next Nuggets, where I'll share the gems from this podcast and provide you with additional resources to help you get from where you are to where you hope to be. Just go to the website, thenextbestthing.act.com. Now, I have a question. Have you heard about the FIRE movement? Now, FIRE stands for Financial Independence Retire Early. That means that you have enough money to retire long before you hit 67 years old. Now, my guest today, Jamila Souffrant, introduced me to the concept just a few years ago. And for years, she shared her journey to reach financial independence, first through a blog, then through her wildly popular podcast called Journey to Launch. Now, I even joined her private community to learn even more tools about how to be better with my money. Everything that I learned from her years ago really helped me launch into my next. Now, Jamila is a wife and mother of 3, and her story about getting to financial freedom is incredible. And now everything she's learned along the way, she has now put in her very first book called Your Journey to Financial Freedom, a step-by-step guide to achieving wealth and happiness. In this episode, Jamila really breaks down what's in the book, and we're going to put all the links about how you can get a copy in the show notes. Let me tell you, Jamila has been a gem to me, and I know that you're going to feel the exact same way. So here's Jamila. First, let me just say how proud of you I am. I've been watching your journey from about 2018, 2019, and it's just amazing to see your growth. Thanks so much for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me. And yeah, you're like a OG journeyer at this
Yeah.
point. You were there from the beginning. So
Yeah, I was in the group and everything. Yeah, you helped change my mindset around money and really introduce me to the whole FIRE movement. But before we dig into all of that, I
Yeah.
really do want to talk about your book, Your Journey to Financial Freedom, a step-by-step guide to achieving wealth and happiness. This is really, really personal. What do you want the reader to get out of this?
Wow. So there's almost 2 sides that I want to accomplish with this book, or 2 main goals, right? And one is the practical, actionable steps. Like, you will walk away with things you can do, right? Like, not just like fluff, but actual steps and guidelines for you to map out your journey to financial independence, and then the little steps and big steps that it takes. And then there's what some people call fluff, or the big picture ideas, that the belief in yourself that you can actually do it, and to have the confidence. So a lot of mindset to help change or adapt your mindset and habits, anyone reading this, that it is possible for you. So to think of yourself as the hero in your journey, you main character in your story, and you can write it the way you want to. And so I want this book to give the inspiration, the motivation, but then also the practical, actionable steps for anyone to reach whatever dreams they have.
I don't think that mindset stuff is fluff at all. I think it's a
Yeah.
core foundation. You literally cannot move forward if you don't get the mindset piece, sorted out. Tell me about how it was for you. You had your corporate job, you were married. I can't remember if you had children or if you were pregnant at the point yet, but you had it all the things from the outside looking in. And what was the moment where you're like, there has to be more. This can't be it.
Yeah. So, I've always had this desire to be my own boss or not have a boss and to do things my way. Even as a child, always, rambunctious. The older people in my family were Jamaican. So, of course, it's like, oh, Jamila talks back. Like, what is she going to become? Because I always, always had something to say. So I think that personality of mine, like, led through, was a through line in my life and allowed me to be confident in the way my mother raised me to go after things that I wanted. But in the same regard, like, even though I got a great job graduating from college, I'm working in corporate America. I just knew I didn't really want to do that for the rest of my life. And I wanted to
Mhm.
have more freedom. I wanted to be rich, but I didn't know how I would achieve that without marrying rich, which that wasn't happening because the guy that I fell for was not rich. And then winning the lottery, which I didn't play, or building a business. So I did try some businesses in my 20s and none of those panned out. So I said, all right, I guess, maybe this is what life is. You work and you make money, make the most you can, and, work until you can't work anymore. And then I was pregnant with my first child in my early 30s and had this long commute from Brooklyn to New Jersey. And up until then, I didn't necessarily love it or like what I was doing, but I just did it. But then, getting home at 7 p.m., waking up super early, being in the car for an hour and a half, like, I tolerated it. And then once I got pregnant and then realized, like, wow, like, this is going to be my life after having children. And then I wanted more children too. It was just like, I can't do this. And then it was like a really long commute home that I said to myself, like, this is not, I was heavily pregnant with my first son. And I said, this is not it. And so I started to Google and research how to quit my job, how to reach financial independence. Well, I wouldn't say I Googled that because I didn't know what that meant. It was more how to quit my job, how to retire early. And then I found podcasts and blogs and this, like, underworld of people talking about the FIRE movement, something I never heard before, and how they were saving and investing in traditional careers to achieve freedom, financial freedom, which gave them time freedom. I was like,
Mhm.
wow, what is this? And I immersed myself in that world, listening to those podcasts on my commute, turned my car into kind of like a learning center, inspiration center. And then, after that, took the next steps that unfolded in front of me. So after all that, listening to podcasts and then applying what I was learning about saving and investing to our life as a family, then eventually, I said to myself, why don't I share my story? And so I started Journey to Launch as a blog. It later then became a podcast in 2017. I was sharing how I was going to quit my job, by the time I was 40 and reach financial independence. And then again, steps unfolded in front of me that I couldn't even deny or, like, turn away from, where I saw Journey to Launch was resonating, the way I spoke about financial independence. I got so many people who just said, we needed a voice like yours in this space, because
Mhm.
a lot of them tend to be, well, the ones I listened to in the beginning were mostly white males, and,
Yeah.
they just had their own thoughts and experiences. And so when I came in, I had different experiences and thoughts around things and started to share that. And eventually, podcast grew. Then I was able to quit my job after my third child. So when I was pregnant, so had two more kids after the first one, and here I am today, a few years later, still doing the podcast, still coming out with the book now that will be out by the time your listeners hear this, and still on the journey to reach financial independence.
That's so great. And I was going to talk about like the fire movement
Yeah.
community. You hear they're like the majority of voices that I outside of yours, right? You introduced me to this whole thing. So like, I kind of went down a rabbit hole too a few
Yeah.
years ago of like, what is this? What's happening? And it was like a lot of scarcity, like 20-year-old people eating ramen, living on like bare minimum. And I was just like, I can't do this. Like, how did you know that you could apply it to yourself when you didn't see yourself reflected?
Yeah. So, okay, here's the thing. I think learning about extremes or experiencing things that maybe you even wouldn't be interested in doing, but just hearing it out and listening is something that allows you, that exposure effect allows you to then realize, oh, wow, like I'm not even doing anything close to that. What if I did some of that? And so, when I heard about people saving and investing half of their income or more, spending as less as possible, you know, those that didn't really intrigue me, but I like the end result. So what those people were able to do is that they were able to quit their jobs, they were
Mhm.
able to have time control and energy control and do what they wanted to do, and that's what I was after. And so, in the beginning, I took some of those foundations and help transform my finances. And we had the income to help support investing aggressively in the beginning. And, we were at the stage, and I talk about this in the book, there are 5 journier stages. And the beginning journier stages, it might mean that you need to cut back a little bit on expenses until you reach a more stable stage, right?
Mhm.
And so for us, some of those principles of being a little bit more frugal, more aggressive worked in the beginning because it helped me get me out of those paying off debt stages faster, or saving up money so I can quit my job faster. And then I realized as I was going through the process that I did not want to reach financial independence in a way that wasn't sustainable. So
Mhm.
maybe if it was just me and I didn't have kids or a husband, like I'd have more flexibility in how much I spent, my lifestyle. But having a partner, having a family, living in New York City, realizing too that I still want to do things that cost money, um, I also then changed my end goal and expectations, and then how we were accomplishing financial independence. So that's the kind of story that I share, like as I'm learning and going through things, and I share in the book, is that you can change how you want to achieve it, and you don't necessarily have to be super frugal. You need to be, you need to optimize or at least be conscious of your spending, but you also then need to make sure, according to your lifestyle and your goals, that you can reach whatever you're setting, and then what do you need to adjust to do that.
What did you have to do? What are some key changes that you had to make? Because I know you saved $169,000 in 2 years. What were some key changes that paid off? That like the big things.
Yeah. Okay, so that was over 2 years, and that was a combination of my husband and I, and that money was sent into a lot of pre-tax investment retirement accounts, taxable accounts, and savings accounts.
So
And so, yeah,
you have to say retirement accounts for the pre-tax
yes,
accounts or retirement accounts.
retirement accounts like 401k, 403b, 457. So I'll break that down in a bit. But I think it's important to note that how much we saved and invested is a function of how much we earn. So we had a very good, as a combined household, 2 income household, earning, 6 figures, both of us. We're able to do that because of our income. So that's just like point blank. Some people
Mhm.
hear that and they're like, I don't even make like, half of that. So, and so it's all relative. But for us, but previously in years before, we didn't save and invest even nowhere close to that. And it's because we just didn't realize that we could. We just thought, oh,
Mm.
we just, do the bare minimum in our retirement accounts, if any, and then, just kind of spend the rest. And if we're saving it, it's like there's no real reason for saving. It's just like saving. And so, but not really investing.
Mhm.
Realizing now that quitting my job was the goal, reaching financial independence, we reorganized, we prioritized what was important to us. So after paying for our mortgage and mandatory expenses, we wanted to hit our investing goals. And so that meant maxing out our retirement accounts. And my husband is a teacher. So as a teacher, you actually have access to your 403b plan through your school system. And then you have a state retirement plan you can also invest in. So like we had access to 3 pre-tax retirement accounts to max out. And so for us, the priority was to max that out and to max out Roth IRAs. We did backdoor Roth IRAs and all this stuff. And then what was left over is what we could spend. So it was really shifting what was important and sending a majority of our income to those investment accounts, making sure we could still live, obviously, and pay the mandatory bills. But then, like all the other things that we never really considered, like my husband had an expensive lease, I had a more expensive car that required maintenance. Not really watching how we went out to eat, like a lot of leaks in our budget, and so it was tightening that up and rethinking how we spent our money that allowed us to be able to do and save that much.
I love that because you just had a goal in mind and it became intentional. How have your discussions with your husband around money changed? Because there are people who listen who have partners, and sometimes people have a hard time talking about money with their partners. How have your discussions changed?
Yeah, so I'd say that in the beginning, this was not something that it's interesting because if someone finds out about like the fire movement or gets more into finances, it doesn't usually the partner is not next to you or experiencing the same thing. It's you going on that journey. And then, that happened for me. And then I brought him along and said, wow, like this, did you know that people were doing this? And he was just like, what? Like, because he comes from a very traditional background, you work until you can't work anymore. So sharing that with him, luckily he was open to it. He just didn't really realize or understand that that was something people did just like me a few months earlier than that. I think what helped is when we sat down and we talked about it, it was about, taking our time. So just because I discovered it and fell in love with it didn't mean he had to say yes and do everything that I thought we should do right away. So it took time. So when I came to him and said, you have two retirement accounts you can max out, but if you max those two out, your take home pay will be literally cut in half, right? Like that was an adjustment for him to think like my paycheck is going from this amount to half. And I don't even, where's that money even going? I don't even see it.
Hmm.
And so he slowly started to put the percentages up. And then after a few months said, okay, let's just go for it. And so it was like slowly doing things helped the conversation. And then what really helped was talking about what both of our goals were. So I was in the predicament where I had a longer commute, more stressful job. I mean, his job is not easy either, but he realized that like I'm the one that has to commute an hour and a half, right? And so, it's important for me. Like if you want a happy wife and happy mother of your kids, like this is really important for me. And
Yeah.
so he realized that, but also realizing that he wants to live a certain life also, right? And so incorporating his goals, like maybe getting a nicer car in the future and, taking nice trips like that has to be like a group or family discussion, see how we can do that. And then I would say also what was really good was showing the numbers. So instead of like just talking about it, like showing him this is how much we can have if we make these changes. How does that feel? And so doing all that really kind of solidified my or backed up what I thought was going to be possible, and he was on board for it. And then, after all this, so you asked how things changed, as I've gone along now, so quitting my job was a big decision because I brought in, majority of the income. My job had more room for growth. That was a big decision. But I think being together so long and seeing kind of, my thought process, he trusted me and knew that I wouldn't do anything to, I wouldn't make a rash decision. So we saved up enough that I can quit my job so that our FU fund could supplement his income. Right. And so our expenses didn't have to change that much. So it's ongoing conversations. And to this day now, we still have goals we want to achieve, like in that is working alongside reaching financial independence. But it's like, okay, maybe we can't buy that like new car, nicer car this year, but what about next year? And okay, are we still on track to reach our goals? Yes. And so it's like it's still an ongoing conversation about what we're doing.
I love that. I love that. And I want to talk about when you quit, but I want to touch on something that you said a little bit earlier when you were talking about how the fire movement, um, creating a creating a lifestyle that's sustainable, and how were
Yeah.
you able to reconcile, especially since so much of the fire movement to get to the retirement, people are just so frugal, oftentimes to get to that retirement place. I know you kind of like let go of the idea of retiring by 40 and you chose entrepreneurship, but just how do you reconcile the saving to the living and doing the
Yeah.
things and existing in the present when you're preparing so much for the future?
Yeah. So the balance is important, obviously. And so I also talk about this thing called guac lifestyle levels in the book,
Mm.
where understanding the desired lifestyle you want to live. And the guac levels like range 1 through 5. And so one being the most frugal, 5 being the most extravagant. And realizing, some people are perfectly fine living a more frugal guac 1 or 2 lifestyle. right? And so as what, like, if you heard how they spent, you'd be like, no way, I would not be happy. But they're actually happy, right? And so that looks different for them, and it's easy for them to be frugal. And then you have people who are like me, who are maybe like guac 3, 4 lifestyle, and then you have people who are like guac 5, like I want a private jet one day, and I'm, try to have a chef
Yeah.
and all the nice things in life, which is also amazing and fine. If you have that kind of goal, then you need to be realistic about what your journey looks like. So, are you earning enough to live that guac lifestyle level that you want to achieve? Where are you in the journey or levels or the 5 stages of financial independence, also talked about in the book? Because if you are in the beginning stages where you need to get out of debt or reach stability, then most of your energy should be probably focused on your financial goals at first. Doesn't mean you can't have fun and, plan for lifestyle things you like, but it's more efficient to get out of those stages first or as fast as possible so that you can enjoy your money and slow down on financial independence if you want. And so for us, what that looked like is, if I stayed at my job, we definitely would have had that guaranteed secured income to reach financial independence in the timeline that I had set. But I realized I didn't want to sacrifice like my life in the moment, with 3 kids at that point, with the business on the side, with the commute. It just wasn't worth it. I realized that I could actually enjoy my life, even if it took me longer to reach financial independence, because maybe Journey to Launch didn't make as much money or any money at first. That was fine with me because I was actually having the benefits of financial independence. I controlled my own schedule. We had flexibility. I literally, even to this day, like live a very blessed lifestyle where I feel free, and so I think it's important to understand the trade-offs. Right now, technically, we are not financially independent based on our lifestyle because we want to live a certain way. Now, if we were more frugal, we would be financially independent. So I understand that trade-off, that I need to work a little longer or make money if I'm going to spend, $10,000 on Disney World or something else, that's not money I'm going to invest. And so what does that trade-off look like? And I'm okay with that trade-off because I do want to enjoy my life in the moment. But I think most people don't even understand the trade-offs because they don't have a plan together. Like, they don't know their numbers. And so they're just blindly making decisions. And then it's like, oh, like versus I'm making this from a position of power. Yes, I'm going to buy the car. Yes, I understand that may extend me needing to work for another year or two, but it's worth it to me. And you consciously make that decision to do that. And so that's why you need to understand your numbers and the path in front of you and be realistic.
Yeah, that's what you always tell us at the very beginning,
Yeah.
is that you can't hide from your numbers. And I remember one of your early guests was talking about how he looked at his bank account every single day, and I was like, "Oh my god, I've never even like considered that." But it's all these things from your podcast that really got me into much better habits to have a better
Yeah.
relationship with money. And so, talking about when you decided to leave, so this is the next best thing, talking about career
Yeah.
and life transitions.
Mhm.
And how did you navigate that transition? Because still, even though you've gotten the numbers together, you've crunched the numbers, um, it's still, you're going against the grain, right? How did you emotionally, and you just wrap your mind around, okay, this is the time to go? When did you know, all right, this is the time to go?
Right. I would say I'm a calculated risk taker. And while having kids makes things, a little bit, there's more to do, like on the journey, more that we want to spend on because of them, that I don't know that I would have made some of the decisions I made without them. So my first
Mm,
child inspired me to like seek out freedom. And that's how I discovered financial independence. My second child, when I was pregnant with him, that's when I actually started Journey to Launch. As a blog, he inspired me I was on maternity leave with him. So I was like, oh, let me just try like sharing more about what I was doing and actually seeing what was out there. My third child, Blake, when I got pregnant with her, like I was starting to realize like I can't do this for the next 4 or 5 years, even though
mhm.
that seems like a short time frame, it just couldn't work. And so getting pregnant with her, it provided almost an immovable deadline because I realized like, wow, I have like 9 months now to we can switch strategies. So instead of investing and saving all of this into our retirement accounts, what if I was able to quit my job? Because Journey to Launch looks like it could be something I do and make money from eventually. There's some promise there in growing an audience and making it into a real legit business. But then I have like 9 months now to save up money so that I can quit into an FU fund to give me a runway. And so knowing like the date that I was, scheduled to give birth, knowing that I had that time on maternity leave, it really almost was like a no-brainer. It's almost just like God, and it was just like, here are the, like, there's no way why, like, this is an opportunity for you. Like, I'm literally laying out like the steps and a date for you that you can quit. And so it just felt, and I feel like a lot of decisions, sometimes we do have to make decisions where it's not as clear. You are taking a
Yeah.
risk. But I do feel a lot of times, if you really are in tune with yourself and see opportunities where maybe there are obstacles or where other people don't, that you will see like, okay, this is the next best thing for me to do. And so that's kind of how I decided on that date, is getting pregnant, counting, like looking forward to where I would be, how much money we could have by then if we saved, and then saying, okay, that's going to be my quit date. And so I went on maternity leave. I think we maybe have did that in April, or yeah, sometime in April. But I also knew my maternity leave extended to the fall, and so I was like, perfect time to tell them, when I was off from maternity leave, that I wasn't coming back. And it really just worked out.
I love that. And I hope that the people who are watching and listening see that this is a process. Started as a blog, then a podcast, then you're doing TV appearances. Now you have a book. Like, you have been growing. It's amazing. And speaking engagements outside of that, it's really, really amazing to see. What has been the most gratifying part about this journey that you couldn't even account for back when you were saying that you were going to quit?
Yeah, let's see. I would say probably, apart from the personal growth and the control and autonomy over my time. Now, I will say entrepreneurship is not that it's easy, and that
Right.
I'm not being pulled. And, there's still expectations to do things like having your own business, even if you're the one setting them. Right. I'm my own boss now. And I'm just like, oh, I don't even like being my own boss. Like, I have to do all these things. I'd rather like go take a nap or go take a run. But I
Right.
think, but I love, like, so personally, like, there's this, when I'm out for my run, or just now, right before here, like, I was rushing back because I had to go to the supermarket or Trader Joe's, and I could do that in the middle of the day. And before that, I was at the gym, and to be able to just be in control of my schedule like that, sometimes I'm just like, wow, like, this is amazing. Like, I can do this for the rest of my life, right? Having this is what I want. This is the freedom that I wanted. I think realizing that I could have this freedom without having complete financial independence. I mean, we are in a very good position where if I wanted to take a break, I can. And, that's what I call journey or level 4, commander stage, like, your work flexible. But I didn't realize like how much fulfillment I could still feel in this stage. And this is a stage I think most people can get to. And then I think, just like with my business, I still sometimes don't realize how many people listen, or how much I've impacted people. So that is also very surprising, because it's just really me talking into a mic when there's no one there, and I'm just like, oh, people are listening when, like, they make a comment, or I see someone on the street and they're like, oh, you're Jamila, and I'm like, oh, like, really? Like, I'm still surprised. I'm like, me. So I think
Yeah.
not realizing how far and wide, even though I still feel like I'm small and growing as like a platform, that this
Mhm.
has touched people, is like amazing.
Yeah, and you're consistent as hell, Jamila. Like, you're so consistent. I mean, all of your episodes, I mean, you're just so incredibly consistent. And so you're an easy person to cheer on, and you offer so much information in your episodes. So it's
Oh,
just the intention behind there. You definitely feel that.
thank
For the
you.
Yeah, absolutely. For the last episode, or the last segment of the podcast, is called ACT UP, and ACT, those are
Mm.
my initials. And for people who are trying to sort it out right now, what can they do today to get them from where they are to where they hope to be?
Hmm. Okay, so there's going to be some internal work that you can do like right now, and some external work. And I think both of them work hand in hand, because oftentimes we just try to go straight to the external work. Like, all right, let me try to do a budget. Let me try to, like, go ask for a raise, right? Which are great things. But internally, though, you need to make sure that you feel confident or you still act even without necessarily being 100% confident, because I think there's a misconception of, oh, if they're doing, if this person is doing that thing, that means they have it all figured out and they're 100% confident. And I think really it's not about being completely fearless. It's about using your nerves and fear to still to power through, because you believe that you deserve it. You believe that there's a life bigger for you, or it's not just having a bigger life, but appreciating what is in your current life. And so it's that internal work to help shift perspectives. It's really important. And then from there, right? So that's appreciating what you have, realizing how far you've come, right? There's people, maybe you're still in debt, maybe you're not where you want to be, but look back on where you came from and start appreciating that and having that gratitude. And that will then help you as you begin, the action and outward steps. So I would say the next thing that you can do after kind of self reflecting and having gratitude about where you are is realizing your starting point. So where are you with your numbers? Like, how much do you bring in? How much do you spend? How much assets do you have? So things that you own, and how much liabilities do you have? How much do you owe? You need to know those numbers. And then you need to figure out, okay, that's my starting point. What's my end point? What is the lifestyle, or what is my financial independence number? If I'm thinking big and wanting to reach that final goal, you could do that by multiplying your annual expenses that you want to spend by 25. So you have your starting points, you have your end points, and now it's just a matter of figuring out how you're going to get to where you are currently um, invested, or your assets, to now where you just did your number. And obviously, that is a long journey. That is not, that number is going to be typically big depending on your lifestyle needs and wants, right? And so from there, it's really about seeing, okay, so I have this end goal. What is it going to take me for me to get there? What is a realistic timeline that it's going to take? How much can I invest and save? Maybe if you're in debt right now, the focus is paying off debt when investing still, but not as much. And so it's really like, so I broke down the book in 4 parts. The first part is more like the why and like understanding what financial independence is and breaking down some of the concepts that I talk about. The second one, or the second part of the book, it helps you map out your plan. And that doesn't involve you taking action necessarily. It just involves like the things I'm talking about: getting your numbers together, figuring out your end goal. That you can do. Some people could do that in a day. Some people could take a week or two. The third part of the book is about action. So that's something that you do over time, but it's like, how do you increase your income? How do you optimize and look at your expenses? How do you build assets? How do you pay down liabilities? And the fourth part of the book is about enjoying the journey. So in terms of what you do right now, like that would be part 2 in the book. And that's all about understanding where you are, where you want to be, and then what does that timeline look like? And then you can start to put the action steps together over time.
No, that's so good. That is so, so good. People can, I mean, just even hearing that, you just have to start somewhere. You just have to
Yeah.
start and get really honest about what your situation is. Don't associate any negative terms, characteristics, good, bad. No, just where are you and where do you want to go? And
Yeah.
identifying that very clearly, I think is really important.
And
Jamila, how, go ahead.
yeah, I will just say one thing, and it's okay to have negative thoughts or emotions around, that come up. I think that's human, that's normal. I still have them. But really, when you just said I was consistent with my content, really it's just being persistent. Like I always say I'm persistent and consistent, as hell. Like I will keep going. And even when things don't feel right, yeah, I might have bad days or be like, oh, like this doesn't, but I'm going to keep going until I get to the destination I want. And I think so many people will take those negative emotions as a sign not to keep going. And sometimes it is. Maybe you need to pivot, do something else. But ultimately, you can't give up or let those negative feelings take over.
Yeah, you can't give up on yourself. There's so many outside forces making things harder. You can't be the one to give up on yourself. Jamila, how can we support you? Buy your book. We'll put all the everything in our show notes. But what are the best ways to support you?
Sure. So you can go to yourjourneytofinancialfreedom.com. You'll find the book there, all the places you can buy it. So Amazon, bookshop.org, your local, if the book comes out December 5th. So your local bookstores, your indie bookstores will have it. Target, all the places will have it. So you can go there and see where you can, and then get whatever bonuses that are associated with the book at the moment that I'm giving away. And then I'm at Journey to Launch on all platforms. So that's Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. I mostly hang out on Instagram. But yeah, just pick up a copy of the book and, tell a friend to tell a friend. I always say, like, you don't have to do
Yeah.
this journey alone. Buy it for a friend, do it together, and you'll be surprised where you could be in, a week, a day, a month. And you blow your mind with how fast things can change for you.
Yeah, and it's been, again, I mean, the book cover is beautiful. I love the
Thank
orange
you.
background with you where you popped. I like, because I
Yeah.
know it was a different, you had a different one
Yeah.
before, and I think it looks beautiful. I love that you're on the cover of it too. And again, just seeing how things have changed for you in the last few years, and how you have just stayed with it. With me in my own journey now, it really just helps me. It's just another reminder of, like, oh, this can happen for me too. Like, I
Oh
see
yeah.
you've laid out the path, and so it's just like you have the playbook. So I'm just out here treading in your
Oh.
footsteps. So thank you for that. Thank you for that.
Oh.
You've introduced me to a whole new way of thinking, when I
Oh.
really, really needed it. When I was just like, I don't know how to make this work. It really was amazing.
Oh. Thank you.